Welcome to Dreamcatchers Inc. It's Captain Jim here. I'm sitting in for Captain Mark. He's out of town. He's doing some boat deals down south somewhere. So he asked me to step in. I haven't been doing this for about a year, but Captain Mark and I are both licensed merchant marine captains. We're licensed by the Coast Guard. And our mission is pretty much to inform people about the maritime industry and what it's all about, how to get started in it. We're both sort of motivational speakers because we like to tell our story of how we got into what we're doing and how it all came about. And so other folks might get some inspiration. And so what I did is, in my particular story, I brought down this model of a wooden rowboat. You can see, there's yours. And you might say, well, why did he bring this thing down? Because this is how I got my start in the boating industry. My uncle, he's a Chicago police detective. He had a cottage up in Michigan, and we would go out there when we were younger, like 10 to about 16 years old, and it was an opportunity to get away from the city and all the craziness that goes on in the city, and it was really good memories of growing up. Well, we didn't have a lot of money, but he had a rusty old rowboat with 2 oars. And I was always fascinated by the water, and even though it was an inland lake, and there were other people around us that had expensive boats, but it was, you just look and think, wow, isn't that great? But at least I have this rowboat. And so he basically told me, go out and entertain yourself, have at it. And I would go out and sit on this little old rowboat and row around the lake, and I wouldn't go too far because I didn't want to get in any kind of trouble. People drowned up there all the time because they had a pretty bad seaweed problem. But that's how I fell in love with boating. And then as I would look around and see some of the other neighbors and have the Chris Craft barrel backs and, the big engines in them, and I was thinking, well, maybe someday I might get a chance to go for a ride on those. Well, this is part of the moral of the story here, and I'm going to back it up with a United States Air Force General, Larry Spencer, who went to UIC down in Carbondale, and he enlisted in the Air Force afterwards into the officer program, and he ended up becoming the vice chairman of the United States Air Force in Washington, and he's got some really tremendous videos out there where he tells his story, which is very similar to mine, in that he never thought in a million years he'd be where he's at, because he's a 4-star general. And he talked about, and there was if you look up his videos, and I'll show you that in a minute here, how he had no idea where he was going. You try to plan your next move, and he said the best advice he ever got was from a lieutenant colonel who was one of his early officers, and told him, he said, don't worry about where you're going. Worry about where you're at right now. Do the best you can, because you will be noticed, even though you don't realize it, and that will parlay into advancement. And he said that was the best advice he ever got. So he stopped worrying about where he was going and just focused where he was at and do things right. And it really hit home at me, because, that's pretty much what I've done. I would never thought in a million years I would go from this to running multi-million-dollar yachts. I mean, some are 90 feet long, some are 70 feet, tremendous amount of horsepower, like 3,000 horsepower. I mean, they're just amazing machines. And when you see the video that's going to be coming up here shortly, you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. Captain Mark and I, we're both born on the south side of Chicago, and, he's African American. Of course, I'm a white guy. And we joke about when we were younger, we probably would have been, in fights with each other. And instead, we become really good friends, and we bring a perspective about life and in Chicago, what it's like, and we're good buddies, and it's all, again, was all built around boating. And some of the nicest, most wonderful people I've ever met is through boating. So, what's the moral of the story here I'm trying to say? If you want to go somewhere, start out small. Try to figure out what your passions are. And like the General said, do it as best you can at every stage. And to use a phrase Captain Mark used to say, doors will open that you don't even know are there. And that's pretty much what the General was saying, that's what Mark is saying, and that's what I'm saying too. So, if we could roll that video, this is a boat that, let me give you a little background on it. The owner was a self-made multimillionaire, and he was 93, and he needed help because he was, getting older and about with some cancer and all that. And even though he ran his boats all the time, he had to get a captain because, his skills were losing and people were afraid to get on. So I'm a member of Chicago Yacht Club. He's a member. Someone said, hey, why don't you use this guy? So we met. At first, we didn't really, like each other that much, but then he, after about a week or so, he got in a little bit of a jam with the boat, and he just called me up and he said, I need you to help me. And I said, sure, no problem. I came over and helped him, and I had about 40 minutes to learn the boat before I took it out. It's the largest model Sea Ray built. It's 70 feet, has 3,000 horsepower, and if you don't know what you're doing, you can cause so much damage very quickly. And this sort of goes back to what the General was saying, that as you move through life, if you focus on building that ladder of skills, you never know when you're going to be put in a position where, like in his case, Vice Chairman of the United States Air Force, and like in my case, where I get a call and say, hey, we need you here, and the boat's got to be moved, and here's the keys, just do it. Now, when I was younger, I probably would have been very intimidated, but I just said, okay, and I tried to familiarize myself with the controls, and there's an old phrase I like to use. It's like, when they have a bronking horse and they let him out, cut him loose and open the gate, and you either handle it or you don't. And, I handled it, and I handled it very well, and the 93-year-old guy was so impressed. He would not let anyone else touch his yachts. And by the way, this is only one of 4 he has. He was a billionaire. He had a 300-car collection guy, amazing guy. Larry Claremont was his name. World War II, a combat veteran, went in the Navy after Pearl Harbor as an enlisted man, came out, transferred to the Marines, came out a captain. He was credited with over 200, KIA to the enemy. He just was a tough little smart guy. He came out of the Marines at the end of World War II, he said, with $200 in his pocket and his uniform. And from that, he built up a billion real estate empire without any help. So, again, what's the moral of the story here? It can be done. If someone would have told me when I was, 10 or 11, that I would go from this to what you're about to see, I would have said, you're crazy. No way. So let's give this puppy a roll. It's a 2-minute video. And I also want to say, poor Larry, he died in last July. I spoke to him. We were getting ready to drop him in the water, and he died about a week later. He had, he had a good life. So the boat is up for sale now. It's up at Larson's Marine. And they made this video to show how big it is and how they're moving it around. So, doctor, hit the video.
This is a real B&H customer story.
Okay, I'm back. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that video, because, as I said, I started with this, and now I'm on those. And I would have never in a million years thought it was possible, but it is. And the same thing with you. If you try to figure it out what it is that you want to do in life, work at it, persevere. It's amazing how your dreams can come through for you. And it's never a straight line, where you go, well, I'm here and I want to be here. No. It's more like this. Correction. Always sort of keeping your eye on what it is that you want to do. And at every stage, just simply do the best you can. And you will be noticed, just like I was with Larry. I mean, I wasn't trying to impress him. I was just trying to not make a mistake and help him out. And it only took one time. And then he said no. I even tried to give him some other captains, because, sometimes Larry was a little bit frugal, even though he was wealthy. And he goes, no, no, you're my only captain, and that's it. I don't want anyone else but you. And it was a tremendous privilege to work with the guy, and where someone has the confidence to turn over the responsibility for a big yacht like that. Never mind that you could destroy the yacht. That yacht could do so much damage to other big boats, and it could be a nightmare. But those skills over the years, as I worked on them, they came into play. I really didn't have to think a lot about it. It was just like, although the controls were new, I knew how boats handled, starting with this. And it just came through. And that's why this fella here, I'll put this, hit the overhead. Okay. It's called, the book he wrote is called Dark Horse by General Larry O. Spencer. His journey from the horseshoe to the Pentagon. And as you can see, he's a 4-star general. And he was born in Washington, D.C., but when he went to college, he came here and he went to the University of Illinois down in Carbondale. And so a lot of times you don't have to be going to like the Air Force Academy, or you don't have to be going to Harvard or all these big name schools. And that's what impressed me about him as a motivational speaker, because the dark horse is usually the one that's not going to win. And he's a very inspirational guy. And the other thing about him, which I thought was very interesting, is that to become a general officer, there's 4 levels of generals. There's a brigadier, major, lieutenant general, and then general is the 4 stars. So each one of those, brigadier is 1 star, major is 2, lieutenant is 3, full general is 4. They have made exceptions in the past where they give a 5-star general, but that's usually in time of war. Like, for example, Dwight D. Eisenhower, they gave him 5 stars, but that's a very exceptional situation. But what I liked about his style and when he talked about it was that, and I really related to him, was that you just don't know where the future's going. You can't plan it that much. All you can do is try to set your sights on what you want to do. And as you're going along the steps of the ladder, just focus on doing what step you're on well. And have faith that you'll be able to climb, because other people recognize it. And that's why we call this dream catchers. You can catch your dreams. And the Larry story is only one story. I could be here and give you a bunch of other ones. I mean, boat's even bigger than his. It all goes back to, it started with this. When I was, 10 or 11 years old on a dirty inland lake. And now I run boats on the Pacific, the Gulf of Mexico, the Atlantic. I know international captains that have told me that I have all the skills to cross the Atlantic. I don't know, I haven't tried that one, but they said I could do it. I probably could. I don't know. But, so that was the subject of the show. And Captain Mark is going to be back next week. And it's going to be his first time. We just started again, so he asked me if I could fill in this time. And we sort of think a lot alike, And so he's got some stories about how he managed to fulfill his dreams far beyond his expectations. So catch those dreams. So one other thing, we were talking about, our former show was called From the Wheelhouse, and then Captain Mark realized that most people don't know what a wheelhouse is. And it sort of goes back to the Steamboat River days where you'd see the old captain with the big wheel, and that was called the wheelhouse because that's where you drove the boat from. And then he realized, and I agreed, most people, if you're not into boating, what does wheelhouse mean? So we're looking for a new name that people will understand what we're talking about. So if you got any ideas, call in next week and let Captain Mark know, because this is an interactive show, and we're grateful for Can TV for giving us the spot. And with that, all I can say is, and one other thing, hold on one second. Normally we wear our uniforms, and either dress blues or our whites. But when I'm on the water, this is how I look. Got those sunglasses on, got my cap, got my windbreaker. So, see you out there in the water.